We finally made it to the home stretch of the NFL season. There's no more bye weeks and nearly every matchup is going to be extremely important. Last week, I went 10-3, bringing my total record on the season to 139-69. In this video, I'll be predicting every week 15 game with score predictions. If you enjoy this video, then please drop a like and subscribe if you're new. Subscribing takes just a second and it really helps me out. Thank you, and let's get started. Washington Commanders versus New Orleans Saints. Well, the Saints' car broke down again. This time it's a broken tire, and it's going to take a long time for the mechanic to fix this one. In comes Jake Haener to try and keep the Saints' very slim playoff hopes alive. The rest of the Saints team isn't good though, obviously. They needed a block field goal to beat the Giants. The Commanders were on bye, and before that they blew out the Titans, ending their losing streak. Right now they control their own destiny, and I think they get the win comfortably 31-17. I mean, is this even a question? Kansas City Chiefs versus Cleveland Browns. Well, Kansas City did it again. They won yet another close game via a doinked field goal that went in. Bears fans suffered severe PTSD watching that. But once again, the defense was good and Mahomes made enough plays to win. This is just Kansas City football now. But as long as they keep winning, it doesn't really matter, does it? The Browns experienced yet another week of the full Jameis experience with 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. They need to get the run game going so he stops having to throw the ball 40 times a game. At least Jerry Jeudy continues to be really good. In typical Chiefs fashion, this will be a close game, but I'm taking Kansas City in the end 20-16. As long as their defense forces a couple turnovers on Jameis, which is basically a guarantee, they'll win this game. Cincinnati Bengals versus Tennessee Titans. It's a miracle. The Bengals didn't give up 30 points to the Cooper Rush-led Cowboys. Now, granted, giving up 131 yards to Rico Dowdle and 322 total yards to the Cowboys offense is a bit concerning, but whatever. Joe Burrow finally won a game where he threw for over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Now, would they have won that game if it wasn't for the crazy block punt sequence? Who knows? It's the Bengals. Believe it or not, the Bengals still have a chance of making the playoffs. It's not high, but it's a chance. They just need the Broncos to lose out, have the Colts and Dolphins lose at least 2 remaining games, and they need to win out themselves. This starts with beating the Titans, who are coming off a horrible 10-6 loss against Mac Jones in what was probably the worst game of the entire season, at least up until this Thursday. The entire offense outside of Tony Pollard was complete horseshit, and while the Bengals defense is nearly guaranteed to make Will Levis look like a top 10 quarterback, I think the Bengals still win 30-20, but with the Bengals defense, you really never know. Miami Dolphins versus Houston Texans. The Texans were on bye and coming off a game where they almost allowed Mac Jones to stage a comeback. Why was Mac Jones in? Well, Azeez Al-Shaair channeled his inner Vontaze Burfict and took the head off of Trevor Lawrence. Joe Mixon and Nico Collins were both really good though, and I think overall the Texans are still a good team, although not a great one like many people thought they would be. The Dolphins arguably had their best offensive performance against the Jets, and yes, it took overtime, but I think it was still a good win. Tyreek Hill finally got going, having his first 100-yard game since week 1. Devon Achane continues to be lackluster on the ground, but efficient through the air, and maybe Arthur Smith was onto something when he kept deciding to give Jonnu Smith the ball over Kyle Pitts back in Atlanta, because Smith has been the much better tight end this season. He took over that overtime drive. Tua had his 4th 300-yard game of the season, which is pretty insane considering he's only played 9 games. He's averaging 338 yards and 2.7 touchdowns per game over the last 3, and he's red hot right now. I'm taking the Dolphins on the road 20-24. I think they have the offensive firepower to overwhelm the Texans defense, and who knows, maybe they can sneak back into the playoffs. Baltimore Ravens versus New York Giants. The Giants were about to send the game to overtime against the Saints, then they realized that they were tanking for the number 1 overall pick and allowed the game-tying field goal to get blocked. And Drew Lock got hurt, so Tommy DeVito's back in to either continue the tank or do something really funny and accidentally beat the Ravens, who are coming off a tough loss to the Eagles before their bye. Lamar hasn't been bad these past few weeks, but he's definitely no longer the front runner for MVP like he was back around week 12. Josh Allen and Saquon Barkley have entered themselves right into the race. Derrick Henry has also lost the title of best running back in the league, although he's still miles better than everybody not named Saquon Barkley. They're still a phenomenal team, and while it would be really funny if Tommy DeVito pulls out a win, it's just not going to happen. Ravens win 31-13. Look out Pittsburgh, Baltimore isn't going down without a fight. New York Jets versus Jacksonville Jaguars. Congratulations, Jacksonville. You completely botched your tank job by beating the Titans in a game that was so high scoring it rivaled the 1921 Cleveland Indians versus the Buffalo All-Americans. Congratulations, you two. You were about as good on offense as 2 teams from over a century ago. And Jacksonville, you went from the 3rd overall pick to the 8th. Well done. The Jets, well, they did it again. They now have officially missed the playoffs for the 14th year in a row, which is not only the longest active streak in the NFL, it's the longest streak in all of professional American sports. Aaron Rodgers had his first 300-yard passing game since December 12th, 2021, which is 1,093 days, 2 days shy of a full 3 years. But it wasn't enough. The defense was horrible, yet again. This game has absolutely no stakes whatsoever, except for maybe draft position, but I'm taking New York 24-14. It's simply a matter matter of Aaron Rodgers versus Mac Jones, and I'm taking Rodgers every time. Dallas Cowboys versus Carolina Panthers. The Panthers did it again. They went up against a contending team and was a play away from winning. Bryce Young, who had another good game, was leading a 98-yard game-winning drive, making play after play, huge throw after huge throw, when Xavier Legette dropped a wide-open pass on the 1-yard line that would have basically won the game. Legette has shown flashes, but the Panthers need a real wide receiver one, someone who's going to catch the ball in that situation. Maybe they try to draft Travis Hunter. The Cowboys had it, and then they lost it in the most Cowboys way possible. They successfully blocked a punt, but then Amani Oruwariye had the ball slip right through his hands into Maima Jean-Meta's hands. What a way to lose. On the bright side, Rico Dowdle has emerged as a really solid piece for this team, and the run game as a whole has been much better these past 2 weeks. Now, granted, it's against the Giants and Bengals, but still. The Cowboys haven't been quite as bad as I thought they would be after Dak's injury. However, I think Carolina gets the win here, 24-23. Young and the offense have been really good the past 3 weeks, and it's only a matter of time before they pull one out. Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers proved 2 things on Sunday. 1, even Jim Harbaugh can't escape the Chiefs' voodoo magic, and 2, they need another playmaker on offense. Ladd McConkey is so much more valuable to this team than I think anybody realizes, and that showed. McConkey has had over 115 yards in 2 of his last 3 games, and the Chargers offense has overall been much better when he's in there. He's likely to return against the Bucs, which would be a huge help. Said Bucs had a very interesting game against the Raiders. They scored 14 points in both the first and last quarters and did absolutely nothing in the middle. Whatever works, I guess. Baker had reckless moments, but was overall solid, and the defense was great all game. The Bucs need to keep winning in order to make sure they win the division, and don't pull in Atlanta, but I'm actually taking the Chargers 27-21. I think the Chargers defense should be able to force some mistakes into Baker, and Justin Herbert should be able to do enough to win this game. Indianapolis Colts versus Denver Broncos. Both of these teams were on bye last week, and both are coming off wins. The Colts beat the Patriots by 1 in a game where Anthony Richardson was pretty average, but did have 3 total touchdowns, and led another game-winning drive. The Broncos beat the Browns in an unexpected shootout where they forced 3 turnovers and scored 2 touchdowns on defense. This game is absolutely massive for both teams. The Broncos need this win in order to maintain their place at the 7th seed, while the Colts need this win because they're right behind the Broncos and trying to push themselves into the 7th seed. This game could be the deciding factor for that playoff spot. In the end though, I'm taking Denver 24-20. I trust the Broncos defense much more than the Colts, and I think they can force some mistakes out of AR. New England Patriots versus Arizona Cardinals. The Patriots are coming off a bye and a tough loss to the Colts, but Drake May is still playing well, and that's basically all that matters. The Cardinals are not playing well, however. They were in prime position to win the NFC West, but then they lost 3 straight and let the Seahawks take over. Their playoff chances have plummeted, and it's highly unlikely they'll make it there. Tyler hasn't been good these last 3 games, and Marvin Harrison Jr. has been fine, but not the wide receiver one they need. The defense also hasn't been great the past few weeks. The good thing is, they aren't done just yet, and this is a get-right game for them. I'm taking Arizona 21-17, and if the Seahawks lose, then the Cardinals still have a chance. Buffalo Bills versus Detroit Lions. Before I talk about this game, I need to do something real quick. Give me just a second, and bam. Septuple extra large pants. Why do I need these? Well, I plan on sending them to Dan Campbell because he needs something to hold in his gargantuan nutsack. Going for it on 4th down, in field goal range, in a tied game is something that Dan Campbell and Dan Campbell only would do. And of course, they got it and kicked the field goal with no time to win it. Unbelievable. Their entire offense was amazing outside of 1 bad interception, and their defense did just enough despite being injured to all hell. Tim Patrick scored 2 touchdowns, the first time he's gotten in the end zone since December 19th, 2021, so that was nice to see. And the Lions have officially clinched a playoff spot for the 2nd year in a row. What a turnaround they've had. The Bills, well, Josh Allen basically planted himself as the leading MVP candidate, with 6 total touchdowns, being the first player in NFL history to throw for 3 touchdowns and run for 3 touchdowns. The problem is, the Bills defense did their best Bengals impression, and boy did they do it well. You know how Joe Burrow always puts up insane stats but loses because his defense sucks? Well, the Bills defense did just that. They gave up 44 points to the Rams and lost, despite Josh Allen, I'll say it again, having 6 touchdowns. It was an absolute shootout for sure. 900 yards of offense, a combined 16 for 24 on 3rd down, no turnovers, no sacks even. The Bills offense actually outscored the Rams, but the Rams blocked a punt and, unlike the Cowboys, picked it up and returned it for a touchdown, and that was basically the difference. Now, the Bills don't have a history of doing a Bengals cosplay, so I'm not too worried about them, but I am going to take the Lions to win this one 31-30. I just think that they're the more complete team, but there's no denying that these two are the best in the NFL, and this game is going to be really fun. Pittsburgh Steelers versus Philadelphia Eagles. We've got an interstate matchup on our hands between 2 Super Bowl contenders. The Steelers didn't stealer it against the Browns like they did last time, and they just kind of bullied the Browns with great defense and consistent offense. They have a comfortable 2-game lead over the Ravens, and the division is theirs to lose. The Eagles kept it close against the Panthers, but a lucky drop and Saquon Barkley allowed them to win. Jalen Hurts wasn't very good, at least through the air, but he didn't turn the ball over, so that's good. The Eagles are a little one-dimensional on offense, however. If they can't establish a run game, I'm not sure I trust Jalen Hurts in a true drop-back passing situation situation. He's only thrown the ball over 30 times in 4 games, his first 4. And remember, he was not good in those games whatsoever. The Eagles clearly don't trust him enough to be the focal point of this offense. But the good thing is, Hurts doesn't need to. They've been able to run the ball very well, and their defense is fantastic. I would say that the only teams I think could beat the Eagles are the Vikings, Lions, Chiefs, and Steelers, only because those 4 have excellent run defenses and would force Hurts to throw 30 or more times. Notice how Pittsburgh was included in that list. Yep, I'm taking the Steelers 20-16. I think they'll be able to mostly shut down the run game and force Hurts to make some mistakes, and with the consistent offense they have, the Steelers should be able to win this game. Green Bay Packers vs Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks are on a roll. They won 4 straight since the bye week and have put themselves in prime position to win the NFC West and host a playoff game. Geno has cleaned up the mistakes for the most part, and Zach Charbonnet had a monster game with 134 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground, plus 59 through the air. Even once Kenneth Walker comes back, I still think Charbonnet is going to get plenty of touches. Walker and Charbonnet could be the new Montgomery and Gibbs. Montgomery and Gibbs are who the Packers played against and lost to, basically confirming that they won't win the division this year. They were really good though, and if Christian Watson doesn't fumble, maybe they win. This game could be huge for playoff seeding, but I think the Packers come out on top 27-23. I think they'll be able to run all over the Seahawks defense, and that should be enough to win this game. Chicago Bears vs Minnesota Vikings. Well, Thomas Brown couldn't quite lead the Bears to a win, and it wasn't close. Want to hear the most Bears stat line ever? They had 4 total yards in the first half. They allowed 319. They had more punts than yards in the first half. That's absolutely pathetic. They allowed a 49ers team that just put up 6 points against the Rams 2 days ago to score 38 on them. I know Bears fans are excited about Thomas Brown, but I think the Bears honestly set him up for failure. Being promoted from passing game coordinator to offensive coordinator to head coach in one season is a lot. The Bears just put too much on his plate and it's not working. Instead of being able to focus all his time on the offense, he now has to focus on the whole team, and trying to do that midway through a really rough season is not easy. The Bears were once 4-2. Since then, they've lost 7 straight. They haven't won a single game since the Hail Mary all the way back in week 8. And since then, they've had offensive stinkers, blocked kicks, shitty clock management, the whole thing. This was expected to at least be a playoff contender, maybe an 8 or 9 win team. They're nothing more than a shiny trash can. But look, you know you have your guy at quarterback, so just get the right head coach, get an actual offensive line, and maybe next year you can do something. The Vikings are the complete opposite of the Bears. They've won 6 straight and just dropped 42 on the Falcons. Sam Darnold had the best game of his career with 347 yards and 5 touchdowns. Justin Jefferson had 132 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Jordan Addison had 133 yards and 3 touchdowns. Addison hasn't just been a wide receiver too. No, he's been a true number 1, at least in the last 4 games. He has 410 yards and 5 touchdowns in the last 4 games. Jefferson has 339 and 2 touchdowns. Obviously, Addison isn't better than Jefferson, but the point is, I think there's a legitimate argument that this is the best wide receiver duo in the entire NFL. They're better than the Rams duo, as Jefferson is better than Puka, and Addison and Kupp are fairly close, so I think I'd give it to Kupp slightly. They're better than the Eagles duo, as again, Jefferson's better than AJ Brown, and Devontae Smith is only slightly better than Addison, although you could definitely argue that Addison at this point is better. The only real competition that I think the Vikings duo has is the Bengals. Jamar Chase has been the best wide receiver in the league this year, and T. Higgins has been pretty good when he's played. For me, it's those 2 duos and then everybody else. And while they are making Sam Darnold's life easier, Darnold is also playing really well. Ever since the horrible Jaguars game, Darnold has played like a legitimate top 10 to 5 quarterback in the league. In his last 4 games, Darnold has a 68% completion percentage, 1,158 yards, 11 touchdowns, and no interceptions. I know the Vikings drafted JJ McCarthy 10th overall, but if Darnold keeps playing like this the rest of the season and into the playoffs, I think the Vikings would be stupid not to extend Darnold. Let's say the Vikings get all the way to the NFC Championship game and Darnold plays really well. Then I say give Darnold a similar contract to what Baker Mayfield got, a 3-year, $100 million deal, and basically throw all the guaranteed money on the first 2 years. So that way, if Darnold does regress, the Vikings can easily get out of the contract on the 3rd year. As for McCarthy, well, he's only 21 years old. He won't turn 22 until January 20th. They could basically do the same thing that the Packers did with Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers, where if by the end of the 3-year contract I project Minnesota gives Darnold, the Vikings are ready to move on, they'll have a talented 24-year-old who can step into an amazing situation. Jefferson will only be 28 and Addison will only be 25, so it's not like they're going anywhere. Or the other option is to trade McCarthy for an extra 1st-round pick and build around Darnold, because I think if he maintains this level of play, he can win a Super Bowl. I know it's kind of stressful having this quarterback problem, but trust me, it's a good problem to have. There are many other teams in the league that would love to have a problem like this. Anyway, now that that conversation is over, though it was definitely needed, we can finally get to the prediction. I have the Vikings winning 28-24. It's going to be pretty close because that's Vikings football, but in the end, they sweep the Bears and keep their division title hopes alive. Atlanta Falcons vs Las Vegas Raiders. Yippee, a second Monday game. Who thought this was a good idea? Both of these teams suck. The Raiders lost Aiden O'Connell for the year, or not, I don't know. First he was out for the year, now he's out for just a few days, and blah blah blah. Does anybody really care? Is Aiden O'Connell or Desmond Ridder? Pick your poison. Or should I say, pick your loss. Yeah, I don't care how bad the Falcons have been or how bad Kirk has been. The Falcons are winning 21-20. I mean, come on, it's the Raiders. They're probably trying to lose on purpose because they need a QB. But that's it. Those are my week 15 NFL predictions. Where do you agree? Where do you disagree? Comment down below. If you enjoyed this video, then please like and subscribe, and that's it for me. See ya and enjoy week 15.